May we now have a rendition of our national anthem, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Your Excellency, President M. Ramaphosa, the Chief Justice M. Maya, please allow me not to go through the protocol. And I mean no disrespect at all. All will soon realize why I did not do it when the Chief Justice does it. And I know, of course, the President will also do it. In my language, we say the success of a ceremony or celebration is judged by the number of people in attendance. You may slaughter a huge number of cattle and so on, but if you have all yourself to enjoy the meat, that is a total failure. Chief Justice, that is not the case here. We have birthed your baby, Chief Justice. The idea that you thought of all that while back is obviously a resounding success. That, of course, is for you to say. I may just mention that we are very happy that all arms of state are represented: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And all of them are central to our constitutionalism, the Constitution, and indeed this very institution that we are celebrating today. I am truly happy, and I think I'm expressing the thoughts and ideas of my colleagues when I say so. Welcome, but of course the proper and full welcome is going to be done by my Chief Justice. Housekeeping matters. Cell phones must please be on silent. Right across there is a tea station, and tea is available throughout the day. If you feel like just walking out silently, grabbing a cup of tea, you may do so at any time during the course of the day. And bathrooms, that way you follow the red carpet, you turn slightly to the left, through there's an atrium. Both to the left and to the right, there are bathrooms on the ground floor and on the first floor. There will be some interpretation services, and we have English on channel 1, Arabic on channel 2, and Portuguese on channel 3. Two of the speeches that you see on the program will be pre-recordings. They are the speech by the Speaker of the National Assembly and the speech by the President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. One other thing I should announce is that on the program you see mention of the Minister of Justice as one of the speakers. It has been arranged such that the Minister will no longer be speaking now. So the Minister instead will introduce His Excellency President Ramaphosa. I see she's happy with that, she's smiling. Now, without wasting any further time, apologies, I just want to quickly get the introduction.
Were you putting sound before?
Please continue.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to control it this side. How is it now? Okay, well, let me come back to the Yes.
Chief Justice Maya's journey in Italy. Born in 1964, she has risen through the ranks of the South African judiciary to become the first woman to hold the highest judicial office in the country. The Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa was appointed in 2024. Her appointment marks a historic milestone, not only for South Africa, but for the advancement of women in the legal profession worldwide.
Yes.
Her academic credentials are impressive and reflect a lifelong commitment to excellence. She holds a B.Prof degree from the University of Transkei, an LLB from the University of Natal, and LLM from Duke University in the United States, where she studied on the prestigious Fulbright scholarship. And I know she also likes to stay in an Ivy League school. During South Africa's first democratic elections in 1994. She has demonstrated unwavering dedication to justice and democracy. She practiced as an advocate, taught law, and served in various judicial capacities across multiple courts, including the High Court, Labour Courts, the Supreme Court of Appeal, and the Constitutional Court. Her leadership roles have included Deputy President and President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Deputy Chief Justice, and of course now Chief Justice. She became a member of the Judicial Service Commission in 2017 and also joined the South African Judicial Education Institute the same year, reflecting as chairperson of its council, reflecting her dedication to judicial integrity and ongoing legal education. From 2017 to 2022, she also served with distinction as a member of the South African Judicial Service Commission. Her influence extends beyond our borders She now serves as Vice President of the International Association, advancing the cause of women in law around the globe. In 2020, she joined the Bosch Judicial Institute Leadership Council. In 2021, she was appointed Chancellor of the University of Mpumalanga, a role she continues to fulfill with distinction. Beyond the courtroom, Chief Justice Maya is respected a place among the world's leading judicial leaders. She is a visionary, a mentor, a fierce advocate for a judiciary and a society that reflects the full dignity of all its people. Please join me in calling upon our Chief Justice to address us. Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for those kind words. And unlike you and the President, I don't rely on technology. I still never gives you glitches, reliable. Program Director, please allow me to acknowledge the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency, Mr. Ramaphosa, the Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Mayor Ntsweni Tsikwane, former Presidents of the Republic of South Africa, Excellencies Mr. Mbeki and Mr. Mafandi, the President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Justice Dawuda Board, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Zimbabwe and President of the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdictions of Africa, Honorable Chief Justice Malaba, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeal of Botswana, Honorable Chief Justice Ketlo Kgetwe, the Chief Justice of Canada, the Right Honorable Chief Justice Wagner, the Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Constitutional Court of Egypt, Honorable Chief Justice Femi Iskandar-Bulus, the Chief Justice of the Kingdom of Eswatini, Chief Justice Yi Mapalala, President of the Constitutional Council of Mozambique, Honorable Justice Ribeiro, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Namibia, Honorable Chief Justice Chivode, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice, Chief Justice Kekere Kun Chi CON, Honorable Justice Ladelo, representing the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Honorable Mr. Justice Pankaj Mittal, Judge of the Supreme Court of India, the Acting Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa and our Program Director, Justice Moise Girasel Matanga, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Kubai, MP, other cabinet ministers and deputy ministers present here today, esteemed judges president and judges of the South African judiciary, and other judiciaries present here today, retired chief justices and justices of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, premiers and MECs in attendance, executive mayor and mayors, chairperson and all members of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development, members of the legal fraternity and academia, representatives from various government departments and Chapter 9 institutions, representatives of civil organizations, members of the media, distinguished guests. Good morning. It is a distinct honor and privilege for me to stand before you this morning to welcome you on behalf of the South African Judiciary to this momentous occasion that marks the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Constitutional Court of South Africa. This celebration marks a tremendously important milestone in South Africa's constitutional democracy and we are deeply proud and pleased to share this special moment of celebration with such an illustrious assembly of individuals, many of whom have traveled great distances in the world to join us. I am especially honored to be addressing you as the first Roman Chief Justice of this esteemed court, which was inaugurated on 14 February 1995 by the late President Nelson Mandela, a moment that marked the beginning of a new era in our country's history. I wish to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, starting with our first citizen, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, and former President's Excellencies President Mutlandi and Mbeki. We express our heartfelt gratitude for your presence this morning, which underscores the importance of this occasion. Your collective leadership, which has guided our nation through the new constitutional dispensation with wisdom, integrity, courage, and dedication. The transition to our country's democratic chapter has been marked by numerous complexities, including socio-economic challenges, institutional reforms, and the urgent need to address historical injustices. However, you have navigated these challenges with resilience and foresight, nurturing a society in healing and shaping our democracy. The legacy you have created through your leadership will undoubtedly serve as a foundation upon which future generations will build to fully achieve the ideals and aspirations envisioned by our Constitution. I'm sorry, I've just noticed that this is not my final speech. I had added things. Please allow me a moment to fetch my technology. I would rather be true to myself than found it. All right, here we go. Thank you for the indulgence. So as I was saying, you have navigated these challenges with resilience and foresight, nurturing a society in healing and successfully shaping our democracy. The legacy you have created through your leadership will undoubtedly serve as a foundation upon which future generations will build to fully achieve the ideals and aspirations envisioned by our Constitution. I also extend a hearty welcome to the leaders of the South Africa's legislative branch, led by the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Msweni Tsipani. We thank you for being part of this milestone event. Your attendance reaffirms your commitment to our collective efforts to advance the vision of our Constitution. We are also very honored to welcome to our beautiful shores our esteemed international colleagues, the President of the African Court on Human People's Rights, and the Chief Justices from across the African continent and beyond, who represent a rich diversity of judicial systems and traditions in constitutional principles and respect for human rights. We are profoundly grateful for the strong show of support and solidarity towards the South African judiciary, and we look forward to strengthening our ties and fostering a spirit of cooperation that will yield positive outcomes for our judiciaries and the communities we serve. Your presence undoubtedly enriches this gathering and highlights the importance of international cooperation in advancing justice, promoting the rule of law, and protecting human rights. And to all the other luminaries present here today, it is a pleasure to have all of you in our midst, and we appreciate that you have taken your valuable time to join us despite your busy schedules. There is also a small group of special individuals who are delighted to have among us today. Individuals without whom this day would most likely not have been possible. Justices Richard Goldstone, Albie Sachs, Kate O'Regan, and Johan Breckler, who were members of the original panel of justices of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of South Africa. We are honored to welcome you back to this home you helped build for all of us in this country, and we express our deepest appreciation for your pioneering contributions, selfless service, and enduring commitment to the court and our country. It is truly gratifying that even beyond the years of your active tenure on the bench, you remain valiant defenders of justice, human dignity, and the Constitution. I take this opportunity in African tradition to convey my immeasurable gratitude to Acting Chief Justice Madlanga and his dedicated team comprising Justices Mshantla, Majid, Kolaben, and Chiku, and Acting Secretary General Report Peter from the Office of the Chief Justice for their tireless efforts in spearheading the mammoth preparations to make this day possible. To organize an event of this stature and magnitude is no small feat, and despite the numerous challenges encountered, their hard work and sleepless nights paid off, resulting in the splendor we see around us this beautiful moment. Indeed, Justice Madlanga's efforts to make this day special as recent as 3 a.m. this morning, when he was busy texting me, worrying about some loose ends that needed to be tied up, and I wondered what we could do from our beds in the very early hours of the morning. Today we gather to reflect on 30 years of constitutionalism in South Africa, a journey defined by resilience, transformation, and a commitment to healing the injustices of our past while laying the foundation for a more just, equal, and prosperous future for all. Following decades of the liberation struggle and a series of intense post-apartheid negotiations, South Africans from all walks of life came together to elect a first democratic government on 27 April 1994, marking a pivotal moment in our country's journey towards freedom and equality. This historic event was aptly accompanied by the adoption of our interim constitution, laying the foundational framework for the establishment of a democratic regime characterized by the rule of law, the protection of human rights and governance, which is accountable to the people. Subsequently, a refined and final constitution was adopted on 8 May 1996. The birth of a new nation was thus ushered in, promising its citizens a reformed society anchored in the principles of democracy, justice, and human dignity. The transition from parliamentary sovereignty to constitutional supremacy marked a profound paradigm shift, moving from a system of institutionalized racial segregation in which Parliament held unchecked power to a system where the Constitution stands as the highest authority. Under the apartheid regime, South Africa's judicial system was administered by a legislative sovereignty which required judicial officers to interpret and enforce discriminatory laws without questioning their violation of the basic principles of justice and human rights. Courts of law were used to legitimize the atrocities meted out against the majority of South Africans. Black people and women simply had no role to play in policy and lawmaking processes. In stark contrast, the framers of the Constitution, democratic order, founded on the principle of constitutional supremacy. This principle, enshrined in both the interim and final constitutions, dictates that the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic, binding all legislative, executive, and judicial organs of state at all levels of government. The interim constitution facilitated the fundamental restructuring of government, dismantling the apartheid structures and introducing an entrenched Bill of Rights that would serve as a benchmark for testing the validity of legislation and government action. Crucially, it established the Constitutional Court, a cornerstone of South Africa's post-apartheid democracy. This temporary legal framework laid the foundation for a system in which state power would be prescribed and limited by a supreme constitution, with the judiciary serving as its guardian. Consequently, the South African courts, in particular the Constitutional Court, were entrusted with unprecedented powers and responsibility to enforce constitutional limitations on the exercise of public power and safeguarding human rights. At the pinnacle of South Africa's judicial system, the Constitutional Court was ultimately created to function as an independent and impartial institution, tasked to ensure compliance with the provisions of the Constitution and serve as the ultimate arbiter in all constitutional matters. In 1995, the 11 newly appointed Constitutional Court judges, consisting of a president and 10 justices, found themselves in modest commercial offices not far from here, with a few books, bare shelves, and minimal resources were at home. The court's first bench comprised a diverse group of 4 independent-minded justices who had previously served at the appeal court, 2 recently appointed judges who had made their mark in private practice, fearlessly fighting for the rights of the victims of apartheid's draconian security laws, 2 accomplished advocates, and 3 law professors who made significant contributions to human rights and social justice advocacy. Marking a notable departure from the previously white and male-dominated judiciary, the bench's composition fairly reflected, to the extent that it could, the diversity of the legal landscape of the time, with 2 women, 6 whites, 4 Africans, and 1 Asian member. Wow. This was a positive step towards achieving the constitutional promise of a transformed society and the creation of a more representative judiciary, although much work remains to be done. This trailblazing These trailblazing justices boldly embraced the extraordinary challenge of building a court from scratch, both physically and institutionally, and crafted a foundational framework for South Africa's constitutional jurisprudence. It is an immense privilege to have 4 of these giants to share their precious insights and experiences on the establishment of the Constitutional Court as a functioning institution and the construction of our constitutional law from nothing. It is only a decade after its inauguration on Human Rights Day, 21 March 2004, that the Constitutional Court found its permanent home where we are at Constitutional Hill, which is a deeply symbolic and significant site that bears the weight of the country's complex and troubled history. For the benefit of those who do not know, this precinct was a prison complex where many freedom fighters were detained and subjected to unimaginable torture. Having it transformed into the beacon of justice and constitutional protection that it now is another beautiful memory, beautiful miracle of South Africa's extraordinary journey. And when our first democratically elected president, Nelson Mandela, opened the doors of the Constitutional Court for the very first time in February 1995, his first words, which poignantly painted the profile of the courts of the previous era, were, open quote, "The last time I appeared in court was to hear whether or not I was going to be sentenced to death. Fortunately for myself and my colleagues who were not. Today I rise not as an accused, but on behalf of the people of South Africa, to inaugurate a court South Africa has never had, a court on which hinges the future of our democracy," close quote. South Africa's apartheid history was characterized by the systemic displacement and marginalization of indigenous populations, leaving behind a painful legacy that still continues to shape the country's social and economic landscape. The legal system of that era was manipulated to enforce discriminatory laws, institutionalize racial segregation and inequality, and bolster an unjust regime. Even after apartheid was declared a crime against humanity by the United Nations in 1973, the legal machinery continued to serve the interests of the apartheid state. The gross violations of human rights persisted, with many South Africans subjected to brutal oppression, torture, and extrajudicial killings, engraving the deep scars that still linger today. As we know, the end of this ignominious period was ultimately brought about by a combination of growing internal resistance that was marked by widespread violent protests and activism, as well as international pressure that isolated the country from the global community through economic sanctions and diplomatic exclusion. Extensive political negotiations in the early 1990s led to the release of political prisoners, including President Mandela, who advocated for peaceful change and reconciliation. As our country transitioned to democracy, there was a broad political consensus on the need to create a body of principles that would guarantee the protection of fundamental human rights of all South Africans, while clearly establishing the roles and mandates for state institutions. The road to freedom had finally begun as South Africans worked together to forge a new national identity and heal a broken society. And thus came the birth of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which, as I've mentioned, was first in an interim form and later the current version, which was certified by the Constitutional Court in a rigorous process. It is established that the South African Constitution has earned international acclaim as one of the most progressive constitutions, as have the judgments of the Constitutional Court, which interpreted its provisions and charted the scope of its reach and application. This constitution is renowned for its comprehensive Bill of Rights, strong commitment to social justice and transformation, and its role in establishing democratic institutions that are accountable to the people. Constitutionalism in South Africa ensures that government power is limited and subject to the law, with the Constitution serving as the governing document. And as President Mandela defined this doctrine on the occasion of the Constitutional Court's inauguration, it means that no office and no institution can be higher than the law. The highest and the most humble in the land, all without exception, owe allegiance to the same document, the same principles. It does not matter whether you're black or white, male or female, young or old, whether you speak Tswana, Setswana, or Afrikaans, whether you are rich or poor, or ride in a smart new car or walk barefoot, whether you wear a uniform or are locked up in a cell, you all have certain basic rights, and those fundamental rights are set out in the Constitution. This expression makes clear that having a Constitution alone does not secure or bring about constitutionalism, as it encompasses a broader set of principles and practices that extend beyond the written document. The first leader of this Constitutional Court, Chief Justice Arthur Charles, articulated this distinction as follows. I open quote. A constitution is a framework for government. It defines the institutions of the state, the power vested in them, the way in which such power must be exercised, its limits and the rules that must be observed by those in whom power is vested. But when we talk of constitutionalism, we mean more than this. Constitutionalism recognizes that sovereignty resides in the people of a country and that power must be exercised in their interests and ultimately subject to their control, close quote. Indeed, a democratic government is formed by the people and exists for the benefit of the people. And to this important characteristic of constitutionalism may be added the supremacy of the law, the rule of law, human rights, separation of powers, and judicial independence. In the tripartite scheme of government established by the South African Constitution, which divides the power among the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, with each arm tasked with distinct responsibilities in setting up a functional government that serves its people, promotes accountability and transparency, and protects human rights. The courts, and in particular the Constitutional Court, have faithfully played their role as guardians of the Constitution and enforcers of its promises, diligently acting as a watchdog over executive and legislative action to ensure accountability in the work of governance and lawmaking. In seminal decisions such as SARFU, Doctors for Life, so-called Bandla case, many others, the court reaffirmed the pivotal role that courts play to ensure that all branches of government and public office bearers adhere to their constitutional obligations. The Constitutional Court has developed a rich body of jurisprudence that has significantly shaped and transformed South Africa's legal and social fabric by setting important precedents and clarifying principles that safeguard the rule of law and human rights. In its landmark judgment in a matter it had a day after it opened on 15 February 1995, the Constitutional Court in Makwanyane, State versus Makwanyane, delivered a groundbreaking decision that set the tone and demonstrated its commitment to uphold the Constitution and protect human rights. In determining the constitutionality of the death penalty, which was a legal punishment for political dissent under apartheid, the court ruled that the death penalty was unconstitutional because it violated the basic rights to life and dignity as enshrined in the Internal Constitution. This decision has had significant influence in the interpretation and application of the rights to life, dignity, personal freedom, security, limitation of rights, the use of the indigenous value of Ubuntu, and the role of public opinion in identification. The court emphasized that our Constitution must be interpreted contextually, not in isolation. The judges looked at our history of state-sanctioned violence and inequality. They consulted international human rights law, drew from indigenous values, and insisted that the Constitution must provide the full measure of protection to every individual. In Makwanyane, we saw a new vision of justice, restorative, inclusive, and rooted in human dignity. The democracy that South Africans envisioned was not just about voting rights and political freedom. It was about redress, ensuring that the legacy of apartheid's social and economic exclusion is confronted and not ignored. That is why our Bill of Rights goes beyond civil and political rights to include socio-economic rights, the rights to housing, healthcare, food, water, education, and social security. These rights speak to daily lived experiences, and they reflect a core constitutional commitment that through equality requires both freedom and material justice. In cases such as fraud bomb and treatment action campaign, our courts affirmed that socio-economic rights are not merely aspirational. The state is required to act reasonably and progressively to realize these rights for all, particularly the poor and marginalized. And in so doing, we shine a light on the impacts of supposedly colorblind laws, which have a disproportionate effect on people who are poor and largely black. The inclusion of socio-economic rights in our Constitution was a direct response to apartheid's legacy of land dispossession, forced removals, educational exclusion, and economic marginalization. The courts have played a vital role in advancing historical redress through these rights. They have recognized that inequality is not an accident, it is a legacy, and addressing it is a constitutional imperative. 30 years on, South Africa has made real strides in respect of law, governance, and constitutional accountability. We have entrenched the rule of law and judicial independence, abolished almost all, if not all, the unjust laws, and replaced them with progressive ones that are intended to entrench human rights, protect vulnerable groups, and ensure a just and equal society. There is a deep well of court judgments that have rigorously interpreted the Constitution and the law towards this end. There is a system of constitutional review in place for the ongoing assessment of the Constitution's success that enables it to respond to new needs and demands. The judiciary has been transformed to a significant degree in terms of both race and gender towards the attainment of the judiciary envisioned by the Constitution, a judiciary that reflects more broadly the racial and gender composition of South Africa. We see that in the composition of the justices of the Constitutional Court, which currently comprises a majority of black judges and 4 women in the complement of 11. The second senior court in the country is the Supreme Court of Appeal, boasts a majority of women in its ranks, and both courts are led by women. These are significant gains, but the country still faces deep socio-economic inequalities, poverty, high unemployment, educational disparities, violent crime, and unequal access to justice, and many other debilitating social ills. The judiciary itself, whilst doing all it can to discharge its constitutional responsibility with the very limited resources at its disposal, has its own serious challenges resulting mainly from being still shackled in the executive, upon which it relies entirely for its financial and administrative affairs. This poses a tremendous hurdle and log jams for the judicial system in the conduct of its work. As the custodians of the Constitution and the law, our courts are vested with enormous powers by the Constitution to ensure that there is no abuse of state power by other organs of state, and that there is proper observance of the rule of law by all persons, state institutions, and public and private entities. Judicial independence, which has 2 components, individual independence and institutional independence, respectively referring to the ability of judicial officers to act independently and impartially, and the existence of structures and guarantees to protect courts and judicial officers from interference by other branches of government, is thus of utmost importance for the courts to effectively play their crucial role and conserve an impartial judicial process. It also reinforces the confidence and respect of the public which the judiciary serves in the functioning of our courts. It is therefore imperative that the judiciary runs its affairs independently and with credibility and integrity in order to preserve its legitimacy in society. But most hearteningly, moves by the judiciary and the executive are afoot to finally fulfill the constitutional imperative of establishing a fully independent judiciary with its own institutional independence in the not-so-distant future. So as we navigate all these challenges in the quest for a just and equal society and celebrate the gains along the way as we are doing today, we need to constantly remind ourselves that our task is not simply to celebrate our lauded Constitution and the laws and court judgments that it has enabled. The promises which the Constitution makes and the injunctions of the courts on those promises must convert into reality for our communities, in our schools, in our hospitals and clinics, in our workspaces, in our prisons, in our streets, in our homes. As the Constitutional Court has pointed out, our Constitution requires us to be preemptive and not only react to harmful and unlawful incidents and systems after the damage has occurred, which one often says. The cases that they become for adjudication before our courts show that democracy is not an event, but a long-term endeavor, a continuous act of building, defending, and improving the system that we in this country chose in 1994. We, all of us equally, bear the responsibility to continue using the law and our collective will and voices to hold ourselves accountable if we are to achieve a South Africa that is not only free, but is also equal, just, humane, safe for its inhabitants, and enables them to thrive. I wish us all and have no doubt that we are going to have a good day of celebrations. Thank you very much for your attention.
we must take this opportunity to thank the Chief Justice for his moving words that evoke emotion. Thank you very much, Chief Justice. We find ourselves in the difficult position that the speech of the Speaker of the National Assembly, which was supposed to be recorded and played here now, is not ready for that purpose. I wonder, but now I will call upon the Minister to introduce his Before the Minister does that, and Minister, I pray and hope that this is not in your notes and that therefore I'm not going to steal your thunder. I ask to say this, I just cannot resist it, Mr. President. Perhaps let me say, you are known by all South Africans and anybody who did not live under a rock or in a cave, that you played a very pivotal role in the creation of our current constitutional system. But there's a short story I want to tell which relates to something I was told very reliably. And the person concerned just took off his spectacles now. I hope some saw him. And he said, and because he's in the front row somewhere here, I want to believe that it's true. I am told, Mr. President, that you were responsible for us having the flame of democracy. But the little bit I'm interested in is that you wanted it called the eternal flame of democracy. But you lost on that, Mr. President. Some people were, had foresight and said, but what if the gas gets finished without any replenishment? There goes the eternity. So hence the name is only the flame of democracy. Minister, please introduce our President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Madlanga. You definitely did well in that one. Let me acknowledge His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, former presidents, President Beki and President Motlanthe, Chief Justice Maya, and former Chief Justices that I've seen here, the Chairperson of the NCOP, and the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Let me just safely say I stand on the established protocols so that I don't get myself into trouble because I don't have all the names Chief Justice has done, because she has done a fantastic job on that. On so momentous an occasion, I must evoke the spirit of Madiba, who in his address at the inaugural of the Constitutional Court on 14 February 1995, the then President Nelson Mandela said the following to Judge Arthur Chackelson and other members of the Constitutional Court, I quote, "Yours is the most noble task that could fall to any legal person. In the last resort, the guarantee of the fundamental rights and freedoms for which we have fought so hard for lies in your hands," unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, this noble task is one to revere, and with the threats to democracy and current geopolitics, fundamental rights and freedoms insulating our democracy and the rule of law is a responsibility to all of us. Since its establishment, the Constitutional Court has played an instrumental role in upholding the rule of law and ensuring that the principles enshrined in our Constitution are not just words on paper, but living realities that shape the lives of every South African, and it has been a powerful force in transforming our society. At the G7, appreciating the leadership and guidance in ensuring that all arms of the state functions in a collaborative and independent mechanism that supports our country, but that lives to the dream of our forebears.
Maybe you think I was complaining. Look now. Everything's like fucked up.
Thing is, not even calls.
Now checking.
Now it has cut off.
I'm checking out. The minister is standing there. The president is standing there. What's wrong with you? If I was in charge, I'm going to fire everyone. I'm telling you. There's a gas. It's not allowed on TV, but we allowed it because we're taking it from the desk. We don't allow buses on TV. Now, yes.
Hey, you've been there. Is it the sound? Is it an outsource? He's not with you guys. Is it not?
Thank you very much. My apologies for that. I couldn't proceed because we've got interpretation, so I've got to speak to the mic. I must continue. I'm trying to find where I stopped. Everything has been off. Okay. As we celebrate this day, we recognize the role and the support President that has been provided in ensuring that the state functions in a collaborative and independent from each other. Many, as we reflect on the journey of the past 3 decades, we honor the commitment and courage of justices who have served on this court, and as well as the countless individuals and organizations that have fought tirelessly to uphold the values of equality, dignity, and freedom. The dedication has forged a path towards a more just and equitable society. As we celebrate this milestone and appreciate the role traveled, most importantly, the different generations that have played a role and those who continue to play that role in building our country and our democracy. As the first female Chief Justice who is leading this occasion today and the celebration just addressed us, you have a Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development today here celebrating this milestone, who in 1994, Mr. President, was too young to vote. And then when this court was established, was a teenage girl. This is what this beautiful country is about. It's alive with possibilities. Mr. President, I'm not here to deliver a speech, but to present you, not to introduce you, to be able to, and request you to address the international event to celebrate 30 years of our Constitution and also its contribution to sustaining our democracy and to sustaining this beautiful country that continues to give hope to the hopeless, to give confidence in our society, in our government, but also in our institution to those that are hopeless. Mr. President, the podium is yours to address us. Thank you very much.
Program Director, Justice Madanga, Chief Justice Maya, former President Thabo Mbeki, and former President Kgalema Motlanthe, Acting Deputy Chief Justice Boiseni Matanga, Minister of Justice, who I did not know was too young to vote in 1994. You now remind me of one other minister who is on the cabinet who tried to twist Nelson Mandela's arm to get 16-year-olds to vote. And she convinced Nelson Mandela that it was correct to have 16-year-olds to vote. And it took the very strong arguments of a number of people who are here today to de-convince Nelson Mandela that 16-year-olds should not vote. So I see that you are among those who were campaigning for 16-year-olds to vote. Chief Justices from various countries who have come to our country at the instance of our Chief Justice, who I commended earlier that she has succeeded in inviting so many luminary Chief Justices and Justices from various other countries. I would like to applaud her for that and thank her for having us. Chairperson of the Council of Provinces, Ms. Tsipane Mtsweni, Deputy Speaker, Dr. Anil Lotriet, members of Parliament and members of the legal fraternity and members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of political parties who are here present, and distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It is for me a profound honor to be here today, together with all of you, as we mark a significant milestone in our democratic journey. This moment in many ways calls for celebration, but it calls for much more. It calls for a reflection, but also for a recommitment and for a renewed vision of constitutionalism in our country. When the Constitutional Court was established 30 years ago in a newly democratic South Africa, this in itself was a bold act. It was also a bold institutional response to a history that had denied the majority of South Africans their basic human rights. It was tasked with interpreting and safeguarding the rights enshrined in the Constitution of 1996. But its role was always more than legal. It was deeply symbolic. It was a noble symbol of our democratic order, both immortal and a legal compass. This court was established on the ruins of an oppressive legal system and was built on the grounds of a former prison, as the Chief Justice said earlier, embodying the hope that the law could become an instrument of justice rather than repression. Allow me to briefly cast my mind back to the 8th of May 1996. This was the day when the Constitution was adopted by the Constitutional Assembly. Speaking in my capacity then as chairperson of the Constitutional Assembly, I described this, our Constitution, as our new nation's birth certificate, reflecting the history from which we have emerged and the values of human dignity, equality, and freedom that we now cherish. A birth certificate affirms the existence, the identity, and the legal recognition of every human being, and indeed every citizen. It grants a person access to rights, to services, to attend school, to work, to travel, and to participate in various aspects of society's life. Just like a person cannot enjoy their rights without a birth certificate, without the Constitution, our country would be cast adrift and would be vulnerable to the excesses of unchecked power. We celebrate the existence of this court over the 30 years in which it has defended our democracy and its democratic vision, as set out in our birth certificate, our Constitution. This court has been the guardian, watching over our nation's legal constitutional health, just as a parent would attend to the health of their growing child. The establishment of the court lent legitimacy to the new order at the time when we were emerging from decades of apartheid oppression. In many ways, the court was born of struggle and hope, anchored in the belief that never again shall South Africa be governed without regard to dignity, equality, and justice for all who live in it. In the early years since democracy and well beyond, this court has contributed not just judicial validation of the constitutional order. It has elevated the consciousness of our people about their constitutional rights. It has contributed to building trust in our legal or judicial system. Through principled constitutional interpretation, it has also contributed greatly towards advancing national cohesion and reconciliation. This objective of national cohesion and reconciliation has been enhanced by the court through its decisions. It has ensured that all people in our country are treated fairly and equally under the law, thus affirming the legitimacy of the legal order and promoting a sense of belonging amongst all citizens. The progressive, far-reaching judgments handed down by this court, as we heard earlier, include Makwanyane, that abolished the death penalty, the Grootboom case that is centered on the right of housing to South Africans, and the Minister of Health versus Treatment Action campaign that dealt with the right to healthcare and access to HIV/AIDS treatment. The Constitutional Court has developed a rich, transformative jurisprudence. These judgments are not merely legal decisions, they are decisions that have changed lives. They've also shaped our society and strengthened our democracy. The Court's judgments have advanced the rights of same-sex couples, of women in traditional marriages, of the sick and infirm, and of the most marginalized members of society. They have affirmed that dignity, equality, and freedom are not reserved for the powerful, but guaranteed for all. The expansion of the Court's appellate jurisdiction in 2013 to deal with matters of general public importance has further expanded the frontiers of access to justice for all. As the Constitutional Court judges, you were appointed at a time of great complexity in the life of our nation, and navigating the imperative of societal transformation back then was certainly extremely difficult. And yet the Court, since its inception, set the tone for humanistic jurisprudence that continues to endure till today. The Constitutional Court, like any other institution, has had to weather many a societal and political storm. We acknowledge with deep respect the caliber of leadership the Court has drawn, jurists of independent mind, jurists of great intellect and moral courage. From the pioneering judgments of the Court's early years to the complex cases of today, the judiciary has been a pillar of stability, especially in times of political uncertainty as well. The bench, again, not unlike any other sector in society, will have borne witness to the many debates around transformation, around judicial demographics, and around access to the courts by citizens. The Court has at times found itself dragged into political controversies and has had to manage occasional frictions with the executive over the separation of powers. And yet, amidst all these, the Constitutional Court has not been shaken, but stood firm as a credit to the democratic order that we established. What has defined the Constitutional Court that we are proud of is not just the wisdom of its judgments, but the courage of its convictions. It has withstood political pressure, defended the separation of powers, and asserted that no person or institution is above the Constitution. It has done so with a steady voice, grounded in reason, compassion, and principle. This very building here on Constitutional Hill is a testament to that resilience. Built on the site of the old fort prison that once symbolized oppression and pain, the Constitutional Court building reflects the hopes and the aspirations of our people. Whether it is the architecture, the artwork, the interior designs, the design of the doors of the judges' chambers, or the furnishings inside the court itself, these all represent a constitutional order that lives and breathes. The success of the court which we celebrate today has been achieved through the collective effort of many. and indeed it is a product of a judicial legal ecosystem. The legal profession, through its attorneys and judges, come to this court to present arguments that test and involve the meaning of our Constitution. The government plays a role as it bears the duty and responsibility to implement court rulings. Civil society continues to act as a vigilant watchdog and as an advocate of the voiceless in our country. The public, whose confidence in the rule of law endures, gives this court its legitimacy. We pay tribute to the justices, past and present, to the clerks of the court, legal scholars and advocates whose work has deepened our constitutional culture. Their integrity, intellect and independence have given life to the ideals of our Constitution. And I do want to take this moment and opportunity to pay tribute to those of our founding Constitutional Court justices who are here with us today. And we pay tribute to you because you were there at the beginning. My legal advisor, Advocate Nokukanya Jere, was one of the clerks of the court, and she has related those early days to me, of the cramped spaces in Bram Park, where the court temporarily sat, to when the court moved to the current site in 2004, when it was still under construction. She has told me about water leaking through the skylight and dripping onto the desks and papers of a number of advocates, and about lawyers drudging up the great African steps, their fancy shoes full of mud with the wet and the dusty construction site. We thank you for having gone through all that. It must have been real suffering that you went through. At the same time, I'm sure for all who had the privilege of being part of those early days, working at this court, there was a sense of elation at being part of history that was in the making, of being part of something far greater, something that all one's years of legal training and preparation had prepared them for. As a nation, we can be nothing short of immensely proud of the Constitutional Court. And this, I want to say to those who have come from other countries, that this is an institution that we are immensely proud of. We are also proud of what it has achieved. And we're also proud of its ongoing and preeminent role in our society. Just as society continues to evolve and adapt, the court too has demonstrated its own capacity to interpret our Constitution in response to the lived experience and realities of our people. It has and continues to do so without fear of favor, and remains a bulwark of justice and hope. The reality we must confront is that there are significant challenges to constitutionalism today. There is a disconnect between the promise of our Constitution and the lived realities of South Africans. The promise of the Constitution is far from fully realized. Persistent inequality threats to judicial independence that are often voiced, lack of implementation of court orders, and the erosion of trust in institutions remain pressing challenges. the advancement of socio-economic rights is not as far as we wish it to be, particularly with respect to the rights of our people in relation to housing and basic services that should sustain their lives. It will forever remain a blight on our democracy that the applicant in the groundmaking Grootboom judgment, Ms. Irene Grootboom, died in 2008 without her dream of a decent house having been fulfilled, despite her right to housing having been adjudicated by this court. Deepening respect for constitutionalism across all sectors must start with the state. We must acknowledge the troubling irony of lauding the Constitutional Court's progressive judgments on one hand, especially on socio-economic rights, with the reality that the state apparatus has in many of these cases had to be compelled by this very court to fulfill its obligations. This points to widespread and systematic shortcomings in service delivery that must be addressed. Our people should not have to resort to litigation to have their rights realized. And this is the paramount consideration. At the same time, the potential for reducing litigation against the state must be addressed, and this requires structural change. To ensure that the judiciary execute their duties independently, effectively, and with dignity, government must and will provide a range of institutional infrastructure, financial, administrative, and legal support. The support is crucial for maintaining judicial independence, which is a cornerstone of democracy and the rule of law. The 2022-2023 Judiciary Annual Report points to challenges being experienced by the Constitutional Court with respect to finalizing matters against targets. This is no doubt owing to the significant volume of cases that the court has to deal with. The 2013 challenges, or rather changes to the court's jurisdiction, have further contributed to this workload. Enhancing access to justice and improving court services has been allocated in this year's budget, and there have been increases for improving superior court services, for judicial education and support, and for filling of vacant posts and to address other funding shortfalls. Chief Justice, you will have had the Minister of Finance for the very first time in many, many years singling out the assistance that will be given financially to the judiciary and to the Constitutional Court. I do hope that as you listened to the budget being presented in the privacy of your chambers or your home, you did applaud the Minister of Finance. I'm not asking for you to applaud him now. We reaffirm our commitment to providing all necessary support to our courts as they administer justice. At our meeting with yourself, Chief Justice, and members of the judiciary recently, we committed to taking steps to advance the independence of the judiciary. I see former Chief Justice Zondo here with us. He continuously, as he was Chief Justice, even on the last day as he was leaving, insisted that we need to reach an agreement on the independence of the judiciary. Former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, your wish is now being fulfilled, and will be fulfilled through your successor. So you can smile. A joint committee is now in action to finalize this whole process of the independence of the judiciary. It has been an anomaly of our constitutional architecture that we've had Parliament as an independent institution in our constitution, fully and properly recognized, and the executive, but the judiciary has, on an unfair basis, had to depend on government on a variety of matters, from getting approval for the appointment of people and not even being in complete control of their own budget. This comes to an end now. The judiciary will be independent. We will ensure the judiciary is rightly constituted as an equal branch of the state, same level as government and the legislature, the executive and the legislature. The journey traveled by this court has been a long one, and we celebrate it today. We celebrate the court's existence as a living symbol of not only justice, but transformation. The court carries extraordinary mandate and weighty responsibilities, yet it has always risen to the moment. Its legacy of courage and conscience endures. Let us use this occasion not only to celebrate, but to recommit. As legal professionals, you must commit to a legal profession that upholds ethics, deepens constitutional jurisprudence, and serves the public good. As government leaders, we must commit to respect the rule of law, to strengthen institutions, and to implement court decisions in good faith. And as a collective, we should ensure that the values enshrined in our Constitution continue to define our national identity and guide our development. 30 years on, the Constitutional Court remains a beacon of democracy in our country, a compass for our future journey, and may it continue to stand as a testament to justice, to accountability, and to the resilience of the people of South Africa. South Africa faces many challenges: poverty, inequality, joblessness, underdevelopment. Yet we move towards as a collective with confidence, as a people with great strength, fortified by the knowledge that the guardians of our constitutional order is continuing to develop good jurisprudence to continue guiding our democracy. As we look to the next 30 years, we should ensure that the Constitutional Court remains a living institution, an institution that is responsive, that is principled, and an institution that is deeply rooted in the values of Ubuntu, accountability, and human dignity. We do wish the court well on this auspicious occasion, and I'm rather glad that the various countries that are represented here, some of them will speak and be able to continue enriching the democracy that many of us fought so hard and for so long for. Nelson Mandela will be smiling wherever he is to see that this court, which he inaugurated continues to exist, but continues to gain greater strength and confidence. Chief Justice, we thank you for this occasion. It is a great occasion for celebrating the work of our court, but we wish that for the next 30 years, the work of this court will have been even more enriched. Thank you very much.
Now, we have reached the end of the first session, and how fitting it is that it ends with this wonderful rendition by the head of our state. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you. Let me mention that as a court and in this kind of celebration, we would have loved to have the entire first intake of justices with us here. But because some have since departed from this world, they could not be with us. What we did, which was closest to the first prize for us, was to invite their families. So we do have members or some members of the families of those departed first intake colleagues. And thank you very much to them for having accepted our invitation. We will break for tea. As we do so, there will be a photo session in which we request you, Mr. President, Minister, of course, our Chief Justice, our foreign colleagues, the Chief Justices and representatives of Chief Justices from the other countries that we have here, my colleagues at the Constitutional Court, and our retired colleagues, and the heads of court. And I request the Secretary General Advocate Potgieter, Mr. Jakes Jacobs, and Mr. Seretse to assist us when we reach that part, which is basically now. And then lastly, yes, Mr. Seretse, he'll take care because he's telling me that we'll do it in stages. So he'll please take care of that detail. One other thing I should mention is that when we come back from tea, we request all our foreign colleagues, all of them, the Chief Justices, the President, or Her Excellency from Mozambique, and all the Chief Justices to take the podium all at the same time, please, when we come back from tea, so that as soon as we are back, we can resume our program. I will hand over to the officials I mentioned to please take over. Thank you. I think it's in order that